The church bells rang so loudly they echoed in her chest like a drum. Leela clutched her bouquet tighter, though she wasn't the bride. She was just a bridesmaid, a witness to someone else's forever. But when she felt those cold, greedy eyes scanning her from across the rows of guests, panic tightened her throat. Mr. Crane, a family associate, twice her age, 10 times her arrogance, and every bit the vulture her late father had warned her about. She had already overheard him whispering to her uncle about claiming her hand, now that she was of age, as though she were property rather than a woman. The thought of him touching her made her stomach twist with nausea. And then, as though fate herself intervened, Leela's eyes fell on a stranger sitting in the back pew. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a suit that looked too simple for how well it fit him. His jawline was sharp, his gaze focused not on the ceremony but on something distant, as though he carried storms behind those calm eyes. He looked completely out of place, like a guest no one expected, like someone who didn't care to belong. Leela's heart raced as Mr. Crane began moving down the aisle toward her, his smug smile widening. She had two choices: freeze and be cornered, or act. So she did the unthinkable. She dropped her bouquet, stepped forward, and pressed her lips firmly against the stranger's. Gasps echoed across the church. Time seemed to stop. The man stiffened at first, caught off guard, but instead of pushing her away, he leaned into the kiss. A protective hand slipped gently to her waist, steady but respectful. The kiss wasn't messy nor rushed. It was deliberate, powerful, as though he understood she needed rescuing. When she pulled back, her face flushed crimson. The stranger tilted his head, a flicker of amusement and something deeper dancing in his gaze. "Hello," he said softly, voice rich and velvety, carrying a calm confidence that made her knees weaken. The crowd murmured. Her uncle's jaw clenched. Mr. Crane stopped dead, his face purple with fury. "Leila," her uncle barked, "what is the meaning of this?" She swallowed hard, her mind scrambling. But before she could speak, the stranger rose to his full height. "Forgive us," he said smoothly, his arm still around her. "I'm her fiancé. We haven't made it official publicly." The church fell silent. The weight of his words was like thunder rolling through the room. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Fiancé. She hadn't even caught his name. Yet the way he stood, unshaken, protective, unbothered by the judgment of the crowd, made her feel safe for the first time in years. Her uncle narrowed his eyes, but with so many guests watching, he couldn't cause a scene. Mr. Crane clenched his fists but backed away, his glare promising this wasn't over. The ceremony ended, though Leela hardly heard the vows. Her mind was too busy replaying the kiss, the lie, and the stranger's steady presence. When the crowd dispersed into the reception hall, she finally pulled him aside. Why did you say that?" she whispered, her breath shaky. He looked down at her, expression unreadable. "Because you needed me to. Whoever that man was, he wouldn't have stopped unless he thought you were taken." She blinked. "So you just pretended." A faint smile touched his lips. "Would you rather I had let him corner you?" Her chest softened, though confusion still swirled. "I don't even know your name." He extended his hand with calm dignity. "Adrian Cole." The name didn't register at first, but the moment she shook his hand, something in her gut told her he was no ordinary man. His grip was firm but not overbearing, his demeanor sharp yet controlled. He radiated quiet power. Still, she couldn't let herself get swept up. "Leela Hart," she replied hesitantly. "And thank you, you saved me back there." Adrian's eyes softened for just a moment. "You don't need to thank me, but you do need to be careful. Men like him." He nodded toward Crane, who was scowling from across the room. "They don't like being humiliated." She shivered at the truth in his words. The night carried on with music and chatter, but whispers followed Leela everywhere. Who was the mysterious man she had kissed? Was he really her fiancé? Some guests congratulated them, others eyed them with suspicion. At one point, her uncle cornered her by the punch table. His voice was low, venomous. "You've embarrassed this family, Leela. That man had plans for you. Now you've ruined everything." Her throat tightened. "I'm not property to be traded, uncle." His face darkened, but before he could reply, Adrian appeared at her side, placing a protective arm around her shoulders. "Is there a problem here?" Adrian's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Her uncle faltered under his piercing gaze, then forced a smile. "Of course not. We were just talking." Adrian didn't break eye contact until her uncle retreated. Then he turned to Leila, his voice softening. "You don't owe him anything. Remember that." It was only later that evening, when one of the groomsmen recognized Adrian and whispered in awe, that the truth hit her. "Do you have any idea who you kissed?" the groomsman asked, eyes wide. "That's Adrian Cole, the billionaire CEO of Cole Enterprises. He owns half the skyscrapers downtown." Leila froze, the glass in her hand trembling. A billionaire. The room seemed to spin. She looked over at Adrian, who was casually sipping champagne, unbothered by the swarm of curious glances now aimed at him. Her pulse raced. She hadn't kissed just any stranger. She had kissed one of the most powerful men in the city. When she confronted him about it later, he only smiled faintly. "Does it matter?" Her voice shook. "Of course it matters. You're Adrian Cole, and I just dragged you into this ridiculous lie." His gaze softened. "You think I mind? Leila, I've been surrounded by people who want something from me my whole life. Tonight, for once, someone wanted nothing except to be saved. That matters more than my name ever could." Her chest tightened, emotion swelling. No one had ever spoken to her like that, like she wasn't a pawn or a burden but someone worth protecting. Days turned into weeks. Their pretend engagement became the talk of the town, forcing them to meet often to maintain the illusion. But the more time they spent together, the less it felt like an act. Adrian wasn't just powerful. He was kind, gentle, attentive in ways she never expected. He asked about her dreams, listened when she spoke, and looked at her as though she was the only person in the room. And Leila, who had once been trapped under her uncle's control, began to blossom under his presence. She started sketching again, pursuing her love of design, things she had once been forbidden to do. Adrian encouraged her at every step, never controlling, only supporting. Of course, challenges followed. Her uncle tried to smear her name in society circles. Crane attempted to buy his way back into her life, but Adrian stood by her, using not his wealth but his influence and resolve to shield her. And Leila found her own strength, learning to confront the men who once intimidated her. One evening, months later, standing under the glow of city lights on Adrian's penthouse balcony, she looked at him with trembling hands. "This started as a lie," she whispered. "A desperate moment, a kiss to escape, but somewhere along the way it stopped being pretend." Adrian reached out, cupping her face with infinite gentleness. "Then let's make it real." Tears welled in her eyes as he leaned in, not with the urgency of their first kiss, but with the tenderness of a man who had found something he hadn't known he was searching for. Their lips met again, sealing not a rescue, not a charade, but a promise. And as the city lights sparkled around them, Leila finally realized, sometimes fate doesn't ask permission. Sometimes it pushes you into the arms of a stranger, only to reveal that he was never a stranger at all, but the very one you were meant to find. The message was clear and lasting. Love, real love, is never about power or possession. It's about seeing, protecting, and cherishing someone for who they truly are. And in that moment, both Adrian and Leila knew they had found exactly that.